Hey everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. Today we have another great mentor with us, Claudia Catlett from General Transportation. We're going to work through her experience in the industry, what brought her here, what she's learned along the way, and pass that valuable information on to you. So stick with us. We have a great episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real-life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, Claudia, thanks so much for
Hi
joining
there.
us.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, no, it's great to finally get you on. I think, where did we originally meet? It was over the Logistics Lounge, right?
The was it in the lounge or in that social club virtual, the virtual happy hour thing? Or was that the
Yeah, no,
I
that's
can't remember
right,
which
that's
one.
right. Yeah.
Had to
Well,
do with the
it's
lounge boys.
exactly. Well, I'm stoked to get you on here, and just for those that, may not know who you are, if you could real quick, just give us a quick who you are and what's your role in the industry today.
Sure. Well, my name is Claudia, and I work for General Transportation. I work for the Decker family, and they have multiple businesses. So we have General Transportation, that's our brokerage side, and that's the side that's the most visible on LinkedIn and that kind of thing. And then our asset side is ART Transport. We run about 50 to 65 trucks, pretty much east of I-35, but some not. So I work insurance and claims for both of those sides of the business. We also have a shop in the back. So we have a diesel shop. So they work on our trucks as well as other units or anybody that needs to come by. So we've got a lot going on here, and I'm part of some of it, and it's really exciting to be here and learn so much about this industry.
Man, so you are combining the logistics industry, which is crazy, and insurance, which is crazy. I'm sorry.
Which I didn't know anything about either of them when I got here.
That's
So
fantastic.
I just hit my 3-year anniversary here. So I think that pretty much anybody who works in claims in this type of position in the industry, we just learned it as we went, and which is exactly what I've done. I think, if you work for an insurance company and you're an adjuster, there's like classes and courses and all
Yeah.
of those things. But when you have those roles in brokerages and in carriers, that we just kind of learn it as we go along, and sometimes there's a class you can take and that kind of thing, and try to get the information that we can and run all of that. But it's been an interesting learning experience for sure.
Well, fantastic. I mean, that's what we're all about here is, tapping into that knowledge that you've been able to gain along the way to hopefully pass that on to the new generation coming in. So, they don't have to learn the hard way as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
even though there's always so much to learn out there.
sure.
But with all that in perspective, I'm curious, what brought you to logistics in the first place? Like whatever got this industry in your sights?
It was a happenstance meeting with my boss. I was on LinkedIn and had open to work on the thing.
Okay.
And I happened to run into the president of this company out one evening downtown. And he had just seen my profile earlier that week, but hadn't reached out. They were intending to expand and start to add some staff, and they weren't really sure what position they wanted to offer me. So he hadn't reached out, but then when he saw me in person, he came over and gave me his card and said that he and his wife ran this company, and they were looking to add something, and if I was still interested, to give him a call. And so I did the next day, and we had a couple interviews, and I started to work February 21st. So
That's
that was that.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And like you said, coming up
So,
just now on your third anniversary, how are you liking it so far? Like, what's it been like?
crazy.
Of
um,
course.
I think when I got this job, I really had absolutely no idea what I was getting into.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to be tacky or disrespectful to anyone or anything, right? When I interviewed, it was really just to find out if we liked each other enough to work together, right?
Yeah.
Initially. And then I came back and they said, okay, this is the position that we would like for you to fill. It's claims. We have historically, I'm the first person who actually had this role in either of these
Right
companies
on.
because there wasn't, we hadn't grown to the point that we needed someone dedicated for that.
Right.
And so we've grown massively in the last a few years, and that needed to have some more attention. So I came on and just really learned as it went. I would go to my boss and say, "Hey, she's like, okay, we need to file this claim." I'm like, great. Like, what do I need to do for that? And so just learning and figuring out where you look on the COI to find who the insurer is. And not always is that where you're going to go to file the claim. You may have to file the claim with a third party agent. I think it's a third party agency, 3PA. I think that's what it's called. So someone else gets involved and you have to file over there and making sure you have all the right documents to file. All of that stuff is things that you kind of learn along the way. And there are some things that are basic. Everyone is this, but
Right.
there's very little that is you need everything, that is the same across the board because each claim is unique, each policy is unique, and so it's really hard to say this is exactly how you do it.
Definitely. Well, especially, with a company that has grown to the point that they didn't have that position before. I mean, there's so much to figure out and,
Mhm,
not only make sure that you're meeting the marks with that type of division, but also that it, does what it needs to do for your particular company and your particular
mhm,
needs. So there's tons to learn along the way. But
absolutely.
within that, this is one of the amazing things I love about this particular podcast is while our kind of key demographic is those company drivers moving in to be
Mhm,
owner operators, fleet
sure.
owners, et cetera. I think it's really important because the logistics industry as a whole has so many moving parts, so
Mhm,
many different positions, and they all kind of connect together. We never get to
yeah,
see it how. So I think
yeah.
it's really important to get positions like yours and all the others in the industry so that those end drivers can really understand when they run their trucking business, how
Mhm.
all these moving parts impact them at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking specifically to drivers who are leaving, if you're talking about leaving a company, hey, I'm a company driver. I've been driving for, insert the name of large company here for, 4 years. I'm comfortable on the road. I really want to do this for myself. And you step out on your own. You start looking at information. You are going to be overwhelmed with the number of people that are going to contact you through that contact that you've listed with FMCSA. They're going to offer you factoring and insurance and dispatching and all kinds of things. And it's just really important that whenever you look into that, you're very careful with who you're doing business with in that as your vendors. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to that, but I have seen we run a lot of loads with small owner operators. I mean, we're a brokerage, and there's a good portion of our loads that go on the load board, and oftentimes they are small companies that do that. And what there are things that like you just need to make sure read your rate con. It sounds silly, right? But read your rate con. Make sure that you're understanding what's on there and the guidelines that are on there because that's a legal binding document, and
Yeah.
that document can save you from a cargo claim or it can sink you in a cargo claim. And I'm not trying to be scary or anything like that. I talked to one of my drivers and he's like, I said, you need to read your rate con if it says that if you're not able to watch the load be loaded,
Mhm.
um, you need to make sure you let whoever dispatched that load to you know that, right? Whether you're a company driver and you're letting your fleet manager know, or whether you're an owner operator and you've a brokered a load, you're on a brokered load.
Right.
Let whoever that is know, hey, I was not able to be on the dock to watch it load. That is such a very, very simple thing, but it is very, very important because if they load that wrong and close those doors and then you take off and you've signed that paper, you are responsible for that load.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate because sometimes you can absolutely see like it wasn't loaded right. It just wasn't
Yeah.
loaded right. But if you look at the fine print on the rate con, it said it is the driver's responsibility if the trailer is not loaded correctly to have the shipper adjust it. So uh, just it's not on everyone, but please just look at that stuff. And I know nobody reads all the broker carrier agreements. Nobody does.
Right.
It- Not all the legalese, but if you can take the time to just glance into the payment part, you need to know when you're going to get paid and glance on the part that says about claims, just so you have a little bit of an idea of what you're doing. But if you don't want to do that and that's the too much, please just take the time to look at your Raycon. Again, when you're moving from a company to being on your own, the company is the one who handled that before. So please, please, please just make sure you do that.
Yeah.
Take pictures, take pictures, take pictures, take pictures, take pictures. If you're running reefer, I'm just kind of thinking, I'm sorry, I'm just rattling
No,
here.
you're
But I'm
good.
thinking of things that I have seen in my 3 years that have impacted owner operators. And this is why I'm trying to tell you these things.
Right.
So, make sure that if your cargo policy, if you run reefer and your cargo policy requires you to have a monthly maintenance report for that trailer, if you can't provide those when you have a claim, it's possible that that claim will be denied. So just make sure you talk to your agent. Talk to your agent about it and ask them what's required for that. Again, not that you're planning to do that, right? But sometimes
Right.
things just happen. And that's why we have insurance. But if you don't understand how that policy works, then it's not going to do you as much good as it needs to. So, making sure that you're keeping your maintenance reports, that you've got your ELD logs, that whenever you're asked, you go do a reefer download. Those are just very important things on a um, on reefer if that's what you're hauling. Um, Looking for exclusions on your cargo things. Um, I literally this morning I had I also vet carriers in our company that we're going to load, and I had someone come through and say, "Hey, I want to load this carrier," and I looked and they had a freight card for a claim that was not satisfied, and the
Mm.
reason that happened was because they were hauling excluded cargo. And the thing that could have been innocent. I don't know if it was or wasn't, but they didn't know that that was either they didn't know or they didn't care. I'm not really sure that that wasn't
Right.
excluded on their policy. So those are just things to be aware of as you're an owner operator when you're stepping out on your own, making sure you understand your policy. If you read it and they're legalese, they're written by lawyers, right? Like we know this. Go to your agent. That's why you pay them. Go to them and say, explain this to me. Help me understand. Make sure I know what I need to do if this comes up.
Yep.
And then you're covered and then you're great. Just those are some things that I've just seen small trucks, small trucking companies have that really affected them. And I hope that didn't come across as, yeah, I
No,
didn't mean for it to, but
that's what this is
um,
all about, right? Because at the end of the day, like you said, not to scare you, but it's really to provide you that firm foundation. Because when you're moving from being that company driver into being the company, there are a ton of factors on there that the company
mhm,
was taking care of before. And while there's a lot of money to be made in trucking also costs a lot of
mhm,
money and it comes with a lot of liability. And if you don't manage that effectively and appropriately and set yourself up for success,
mhm.
you'll be out of the industry quicker than you got into it.
Right. Right, and again, I'm not trying to be scary. I'm just trying to say, like, these are things to look at,
Definitely.
you know, and so anyway, yeah, that's the start of it. I also work, I told you I work insurance and claims, but I also that kind of backed me into risk management here.
Okay.
Um, because when I very first got here and I was filing claims, learning how to do that, and I filed claims, and I would get something rejected because like the VIN wasn't on the policy, so it wasn't a covered truck,
Mm, yeah.
things like that. And honestly, I think a lot of that stuff did not used to happen, right? Used to, I talked to some of the older truck drivers, and the OGs, and I said something about a truck that hit one of our trucks, and I said, "Oh, they didn't have insurance," and he just like his brain almost exploded. He was like, "What?" The idea, the very thought of running a truck without insurance was absolutely absurd to him, and it was to most of them in that
Yeah.
uh, generation. It's not that way anymore. So learning that you need to make sure, and I think sometimes drivers don't know, right? I have a small, like if you're running a small trucking operation and you have and you've got a box trucks, right? And hey, you've got a couple extra loads that you can pick up, so you rent a couple extra Penske's or whatever, for the day, for the week to do those loads. You need to make sure that those are added on your cargo policy,
Yeah.
because if that's not added, then it's not going to be covered. So just make sure that there are some just little things, that you may not realize you have to do. Like, oh, I have insurance and I rented this truck, then that's fine. Mm, if you've got a scheduled auto policy, you need to make sure that that's added to it. So those are just kind of small tips that um, sometimes people are like that. Of course, everybody would do that, but sometimes you don't
Yeah.
know. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to any of that, but those are just some of the things to look into and make sure that you're getting all of those things lined out correctly.
No, definitely all gold nuggets for sure. And I mean, from your experience in the industry here and both the insurance side, the risk management side, I mean, you said your company also runs 50 to 60 trucks. I mean, that really puts you in the front lines there.
Hmm.
From your perspective and kind of what you're doing in the day to day, what are you seeing as some of the biggest challenges in the trucking industry today?
Um, so there's so much. Um,
Pandora's box.
yeah. So the I think one of the big things that we're talking about, fraud is huge, and
Mm,
that is
yeah,
in my face every day. That's why I'm vetting carriers. So fraud is wreaking havoc on our industry.
yeah,
And I'm not saying any of these things to be scary. I'm just saying like this is the stuff that I deal with. So like this is it, right?
yeah,
If you're an owner operator and you're booking loads off of boards, please be very, very careful with whom you're booking loads with. Check the domain of who is sending you that load. If someone's sending you a load from a Gmail and every other email for that company is like, you know, at gentransportation.com, maybe that's not appropriate, right? So you need to check and make sure. Call the brokerage. Like if you say, hey, they're like, hey, I'm working for General Transportation. I'm trying to send you this load. Call General. Like pick up the phone, find the phone number, call General. Hey,
right.
is, Alex allowed to dispatch this load? He's trying to send me from here to here. This is my load number. Like our load numbers start with a 0. I don't know what you're coming at me with this 9. That's not even close to a load number. So just that will help you. I mean, and here's the thing, you small owner operators, 1 or 2 trucks, running one double brokered load across the country that you don't get paid for could absolutely sink you.
Yeah,
So in that, I'm not trying to be scary, but if you get a load double brokered to you and the original broker pays the bad guy, eventually you can try to come back and get that money, but it is extremely hard and it's going to take you time. And when you were expecting to be able to turn in your BOLs and get payment so that you can pay for your gas and everything else that you just did for that load, you're not going to have it. So make sure who you're booking with is who they say they are. There are companies out there like I think Freight Validate is one out that you can check with. Brokers Carrier Assure has a brokerage check. You can look at DAT. If you're booking on DAT, there's a ratings a review. What's it called? Reviews for the for brokers or carriers. Look at that. So make sure you're checking all of those things. Um, Again, you have to make decisions very quickly. I know that.
yeah,
Someone calls you, you've been on the phone for 5 minutes waiting for them, and they say, yeah, yeah, we'll do this. And you say, okay, I'll take that load because you don't want to get freight guarded for turning down a load later, right? But you just want to make sure that you're doing your diligence on the front end. Once you establish hey, these four brokers, I'm working pretty well with them. You can those are the ones you want to look at first, right? And if they don't have those, then we'll go back down and look for something else. Trying to do that would help as well. I know insurance is tough right now. Insurance is very expensive and it's really hard for small owner operators. So I know that you want to save money on that. I understand. Also be very aware of again what your policies say. Just make
yeah,
sure that you're getting the coverage that you need. Make sure there's someone who's going to answer the phone when you call. I mean, I've called some of these agencies and I'm like, what is this? There's no humans there. It's all like computers that are doing things, you
yeah.
know? And so you just want to make sure that you are getting the service that you need in your insurance. So you want to get that. Uh, I guess those are the couple things that I think are kind of big for owner operators that are, particularly smaller companies. Again, just making sure that you're getting good loads. Those loads are actually like
Yeah.
from the broker that you're trying to get or from the shipper. People impersonate shippers all the time. So, just careful of those things and be aware of what your paperwork says.
No, I think both of those topics are, I mean, amazingly huge to discuss, both in the insurance premiums and the fraudulent aspect of the industry right now.
Mhm.
Two major points. Let's start back with insurance, and I want to work over to the fraud as well. But, outside of fuel, which, is a big deal for a trucker.
Mhm,
Insurance premiums tend to be like one of the
mhm,
biggest costs,
mhm,
especially going into your own business like that.
mhm.
Have you come across any strategies to like keep premiums manageable for companies starting out?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the first thing you want, keep your records clean. Listen,
There you go.
when you get inspections, like, do your maintenance, do your pre-trips, do your post-trips, and I'm not saying that because, like, I wanna tell you what to do and run your life, but when you do proper pre-trips and post-trips, you're gonna keep your maintenance better, right? The
Yeah,
better you maintain your truck and trailer, the better, you're gonna be at inspection time. Like, when you hit for an inspection, there's no reason for you to be put out of service because there's, 4 lights missing or some random stuff like
right,
that. Make sure
right.
that you're doing that. And if you're using a company to do your like safety, things, because that's pretty common with small owner ops to go to someone and say, hey, listen, I don't know where I'm supposed to be filing all the things, all of that. Like, let's do that. That's great. I mean, okay, do that, but make sure, again, making sure your vendor is a reputable company that's doing that and keeping you on track for that. But keeping clean inspections is going to be important for your renewal. Um, making, and I think that I'm not an insurance agency. I'm not an insurance producer. So
Right,
let's disclose that right now. I'm a purchaser of insurance. So I'm telling you from my experience, those clean inspections are definitely what's going to be better for you. And then when you're looking at making sure that you've got a dash cam, you've got your ELD, you've been
mhm,
running your ELD, you keep that connected, and that there are some companies now, insurance companies, that if you connect your ELD, they you can save money. It's HDVI. I don't know if they do it for independent, like one truck things, but they're doing a program now that's pretty cost effective, at least for fleet sizes, that has to do with ELD connection. So just making sure that you're having that and staying within regulations because they're going to pull that report. You are absolutely going to get your safety report pulled for your insurance. So just
definitely.
make sure that you do that, and that would probably help as well. Making sure that you are aware of where the hotspots are for theft as well.
Oh,
Saying,
yeah,
hey, listen, if I have to go to Memphis, if I have to overnight in Memphis, I'm going to make sure that I have a secure. When I say secure lot, I don't mean somebody's backyard. I mean like a lot that has a
right.
gate on it. There has to be verification to get through that gate. That is a secured
Yeah.
lot. So making sure that if you do those things, that's just kind of a tip. But when you talk about that, my insurance agent said when he goes to get our policy, he is basically telling our story and telling that producer that we are worth insuring, right? And so when you guys as independents go to your agent or go to someone and you want to have your insurance, you want to tell them your story and tell them, I am responsible. I do drive within the speed limit. I do have my CDL that's been, updated. I keep my medical, what's that called? Release medical form on. My ELD has been connected. It's all clear. I'm aware of, and when you talk to them about that, talk to them about being aware about reading your rate cons and making sure you understand what they say. Then you're showing how knowledgeable you are, and that gives them comfort and makes them want to do that. Hey, listen, when I look at a load board, I make sure that I do this, I double check this. Those are positive things for you that can help the story that they're telling about you and get you a better insurance and policy.
Definitely. Now I
Just
know within
experience
that.
it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I know within that, we touched on several things like, the dash cams, ELDs, insurance, and all above, and so many of these different costs. Now, I've seen some providers out there. Obviously, there's 10,000 services. Some providers like factoring and stuff will offer where they have like partner programs. Do you see value in going through that where they have those connections, or should you source those independently, or is there a difference?
There are some really good programs that you tend to get. It's like when you bundle, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so if you factor and run your fuel card through the same thing. Like sometimes there are some really good fuel cards out there. So be aware of what those are. I can't tell you what all of them are, honestly, because I don't know all of them, but
Oh, yeah.
just making sure that you're that some of the agencies that you work, again, some factoring companies have their own fuel card thing, so it can kind of loop together, and so you get more discounts with that. The same goes with certain ELD companies. If ELD, yeah, in insurance as well, like our cargo insurance, there's a partner program that there are multiple kind of other vendors that we can utilize that we could get discounts on those vendors, because that would assist us in being more secure, or whatever that is. So ask about those whenever you talk to your agency, or you whoever that is, whether it's your factoring company or your agency, insurance agency.
Ah, that's fantastic. Tons of gold nuggets today. I'm loving it. Now, from your experience, dealing with the insurance claims, I mean, what would you say, 50 to 60 trucks? Hopefully you guys don't have a lot of claims, but you definitely have experience in the
Mm.
industry here. Where do you see in that process that could cause, cash flow problems related to insurance claims? And what are some like pitfalls that somebody getting into their own business should really be aware of there?
So it's very common in our industry that if you have a cargo claim, depending on the size of that claim, you could get your payables frozen from a brokerage. So if you're running a lot of freight for one customer, and then you run across a claim, if you start running a lot of freight for somebody, you probably want to talk to them and say, hey, listen, we haven't had any issues. There's been nothing going on, but I just want to make sure that, should something happen with a claim, if I'm willing to just go ahead and open that claim up and get the adjuster assigned, while we're waiting for that to go, can we make sure that, like, my payables aren't going to be frozen? So you
Right.
want to, and I've been here for 3 years. I've never had anybody proactively come to me and ask me that, but I've had to make that decision multiple times regarding our carriers. Am I going to hold these payables? Am I not going to hold these payables? And all of that has to do with, oftentimes, the communication you receive from from the carrier. Is the carrier willing to talk to you about their insurance policy and their coverage, and those kind of things? And I've many times been able to get our payables released on the ART, on our asset side, because, like, hey, we got the value of it. Our payables are a lot more than that. Can you only hold, like, those three payables for the value of the load, and then pay us out the rest? And usually they will. I'm not going to hold more than what the value of the claim is. Some places are not like that, though. I will warn you. There are some that it doesn't matter if the claim is, you know, I don't know, $2,000, and you're holding payables of 10 grand, they're going to hold everything. So
Right.
you just want to be aware of that. And sometimes I will say there are times that I hold everything because I don't know the value of the claim yet. And if I know that that load could be an $80,000 load, and you've got 20,000 on the books, I'm going to wait and make sure that we've got the claim filed, that it's going to process, or that I know what the claim value is and that kind of thing before I let all of that go, or the rest of it go. So just some kind of tips there to talk about for cash flow, for absolute sure, that can definitely impact you.
Fantastic. Now, in a past life, before I got into marketing and logistics, I used to work in underwriting and logistics.
Oh, okay.
So I know there used, or not used to be, but there is a ton of different types of insurance policies out there for truckers, and it really matters. What are some insights on like what should a trucker have on different types of insurance between like the cargo, the liability, et cetera? Is it really directed on like what they're hauling, or is there certain specifics that they're required to have?
Sure. So the, there's two differences in what you're looking for requirements. So you've got your FMCSA requirements, and then you've got your requirements from your customer, right? So FMCSA requires you to have $750,000 of auto liability coverage. Most brokers that I know are going to require 1 million. Um, most policies are 1 million, but especially, again, for small trucks, when you're talking about straight box trucks and something like that, sometimes they won't have that top coverage. So I would suggest that if you're going to do auto liability, at minimum, you want to do 1 million on that, just because there are so many companies that you cannot work for if you don't have that. You
Yeah.
need cargo insurance. Cargo insurance is not required by the FMCSA. I do not know why it is, because why it's not, because I think that not having that has sunk some carriers, and that's really sad to me. But we won't load anybody without cargo insurance. and we will double check and make sure that that insurance is there before we load anybody. Typically, you're going to have a requirement of 100,000 for your cargo insurance. Most brokerages that I'm aware of will require at minimum that. Then, depending on the load you have, they might require more. So we have a few customers who have higher value loads, and when we book those loads, we want to make sure that the carrier that we're booking also has a higher policy. So if you have, 150, if you have 250,000 on that, then that allows you to have the opportunity to book some of those higher value loads, which can offer you more money because you're doing the higher value loads. But again, you need to make sure that that's being communicated on the front end. So, hey, what's the value of the load? Is it over 100,000 or not? You don't have to know pennies and cents, right? You just want to know, like, is it less than 100,000 or is it more? Because if it's more, we need to make sure that we have the right policy for it. But I would suggest 1 million for auto liability, 100,000 minimum for your cargo, and then I suggest everybody have general liability. I run a lot of carriers here that do not have it. It's not that expensive when you talk to your agency and talk to them about it, and it just provides you kind of some extra, a little extra around that. I've never actually had to file on one of those, but that's something to consider as well.
Fantastic. Well, I know we're getting a little up on time, but I want to hit on the fraud if we can for just a
Sure.
minute. Now, with so much fraud hitting the industry these days, there's a financial side to that. And with those costs, like from what you see in the industry today, are carriers absorbing those costs? Does it trickle down or how is it, ultimately impacting?
I think the biggest thing it's hit carriers because in carriers, like, carriers get hit by I think their biggest impact is getting if their identity is taken and someone books loads on their behalf to not when they don't have knowledge of it, and then they either steal that freight or double broker that freight or whatever that is that they do with it. So you want to make sure that you're checking your that's PS, by the way, tip. Check your FMCSA data and make sure nobody's messing with it. I would set an alarm, check it every Monday morning or whatever. Like, do something in your machines. It's going to remind you that you're going to check that regularly, because if somebody changes that, and their FMCSA is trying to fix it where it's harder for people to fraudulently do that, but it does happen. So if it happens, you want to make sure that you jump on top of that because someone is targeting you. So you don't want to do that. But the reason that reason carriers get hit by that is they get hit by the cost, right?
Right.
I ran that load from South Carolina to California, and now I'm not getting paid for it. Well, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that you've missed out on. And we'll see what happens. It depends on the brokerage or the shipper, whoever the hiring person is, whether or not they're going to try to go after you. They can't. You have to be able to prove that you didn't know about it. There's just so much involved, and that's very time consuming. So the cost that carriers bear is that hauling for free without knowing they're hauling for free. And then you've got brokerages and kind of middlemen, right? 3PLs, brokerages. We are often held to these type of claims from our customers, whether or not we had anything to do with it or not,
Mm,
because contract. And so brokerages are getting a lot of that. Shippers are also are starting to get, they weren't at first as impacted, but they are starting to get much more impacted and starting to be very a lot more aware of who they're shipping and who they're loading and that kind of thing. So, but I think that really it's kind of the middle guys. We're the middle guys that are really
yeah.
kind of being held to things, but um, you know, maybe contractually, you're not responsible, but that's your biggest customer. So you make yourself responsible. It's a business
Fair enough.
decision. So those are just some things to certainly be aware of. Fraud is just it's everywhere and it's kicking our butt. So we're definitely doing what we can to try to mitigate that.
100%. Man, you have dropped some knowledge bombs on us today. I'm loving every bit of it. And I feel like there's so much more to tap into. Would you mind us getting you back on for a kind of a part two on this?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've gone through a ton today. We've learned so
Yeah.
much from you. In this time, though, anything else you feel like we've missed that's important to throw in here now?
I just think, hey, first I want to say thank you because I can't do my business. Nobody in this room can do our business without drivers that are on the road doing the things. So thank you. I actually do a little I do a little gratitude thing every morning on my way into work and talk. And at the end of it, I say, this is who I'm thankful for. And truckers are on my list, drivers are on my list, because you are what moves America. You're what moves the world, and we appreciate you very much. And so, I just encourage you to make sure to look at all your documents and make sure you've got right coverage in place. Those couple of things will help you. And again, maintenance. I know that sounds terrible, and you're like, I don't care about that. I know you don't care until it doesn't work. You care, and it's hard.
Exactly.
Find a reputable shop.
Yep.
There's some bad guys out there, so find a reputable shop. And there's some good. There were some really really great people in this industry, and I've learned a lot. And people can be very very kind. And of course, there's the other end of it, but I look for those, look for the good ones. And I'm very appreciative of folks that I get to meet like you, who are spreading the word to drivers and to owner operators that says, hey, these are things that you can do. Here's how you can protect yourself. So anything that I can do, I'm happy to try to help.
Awesome. Well, I want to give you a chance for some shameless plugs. How do people find out about you, get in touch with you, and find out more about your company?
Sure. Well, my name is Claudia Catlett, and I'm on the LinkedIn. So I don't know if I need to send you a thing, but you can put my profile. You're welcome to reach out to me there. And then if you want to find general transportation, we're at transportation.com. We haul all over the 48. So with a random type of, we all drive van and reefers and flatbeds. So we've got an assortment of different freight that we do haul out. So, I'm sure that you'll see some of our stuff on the load board. So if you want to reach out to that, if you do reach out to us, if you have any issues with onboarding, like small carriers particularly, that have heard me, know me, say, hey, listen, I called and so said I didn't meet your requirements, because that's what I tell my load coordinators when they do when something's weird. I'm like, tell them we don't meet our requirements. So if that's the case and you've seen this and you know me, give me a call. I will, or hit me up on LinkedIn directly. Hey, I tried to onboard and I had an issue. And we'll connect and we'll work it out. I have no problem making exceptions for the rules that we have in place. We have some very broad rules in place just to honestly just to try to mitigate the fraud, right? But then when things get escalated, then I can look at it and I can look more into it. So I'm happy to do that. So if you run into that with our company, and be sure to let me know and I'll try to help you out.
Fantastic. Well, Claudia, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much for all that you're doing for the industry. It's definitely needed.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time, and I look forward to hopping back on next time.
Fantastic. Well,
Okay.
thank you again, everyone out there watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a wonderful day.